My name is Martin Chaidez. Some of you may know me as TK, and I would like to first off introduce, as she said, my major, which is blacksmithing. It's pretty unique, I guess. But more importantly, this wouldn't have been possible without the help of my sponsor, Professor Riki Ichiho. And I have to say that no matter the amount of books I read on a business or anything that I needed for my project, none of it compares to the information and advice he provided, which is completely invaluable. And you also can't find on Amazon. So thank you, Professor Riki Ichiho. All right, so forging ahead. As Professor Ren said, this is about blacksmithing, and the topic of my project was also about blacksmithing. So why is blacksmithing interesting to me? You're basically heating up a piece of metal with fire and smacking it for hours. It makes you hot, it makes you dirty. It takes a lot of effort, and you get tired in the end. Who would like that? To me, it's the epitome of creation. And you're using raw materials, in this case metal, to create something else like a tool, which you may end up using to make other tools and things. And I think that's something that I gravitated towards, mostly because it's also tied to history. History is very connected to blacksmiths. Without blacksmiths, we wouldn't have simple things such as nails. By the way, blacksmiths used to make every single nail. So that's crazy to me. And it goes back to how blacksmiths were practical, but they were also very artistic in the means that many metalworkings that you find in museums are of such high quality in both the metal and the engravings, decoration, ornamentations. All of it is very ornate, and that's something that I believe was very like central to like what I want to do. And also, I just think it's cool. It's a timeless craft, and it's still going on today, though not as much, but still there. So the central research question that I had for my project was, how does blacksmithing fit in today? Despite everything I just said about it being connected to history, blacksmiths are kind of irrelevant today. Nails are no longer made by blacksmiths. You don't need to go to your local blacksmith because not only is there no local blacksmith anymore, but you could go to Home Depot for your hammers or to Walmart for your kitchen knife. So how does blacksmithing fit in the modern world society and marketplace? I thought this was a good question to ask because all odds seem to be against the art. Central roles smiths used to fill have been taken over by machinery, and countless forging recipes and techniques have been lost to time. And so I asked myself, how can a business be made off of blacksmithing with all these things against it? Well, I had to do a lot of research, but I eventually came to the conclusion that blacksmiths have several advantages, but more importantly, my research was based on information on that information. So uh, to answer those two questions, I engaged in like research that was primarily informational, such as the explanation of the forging process, both a at a level in which it explains it step by step for the blacksmith to understand, and also at what's happening at a scientific level. For example, Samurai Swords, a book by Clive Sinclair, was essential to teaching me some of the old recipes that Japanese swords are used to be like notoriously strong and sharp. And some elements were such as the creation of hamon, which is a hardened edge. And it's a technique that significantly strengthens the blade. Now, that's something that you're not going to find in your local art book. I also use a lot of anecdotal and methodical research in my process. This was primarily for the business plan. I also dug through these types of books in order to learn from those books, such as like the traditional business plans that are in, say, business models for entrepreneurial ventures, as well as like techniques in, say, the creator's code. And they also both taught me a lot about how to go about my business plan, whether it was just like the actual formula and how to adapt it, or certain like mindsets to have, such as this is my favorite quote from the book, by the way. In addition to death and taxes, another certainty in life is that business model will change many times. That is very true. and it is very tiring, but nonetheless, that's the way you have to go about it. So for my project, I made an essay and I wrote an essay and also wrote up a business plan. And this business plan required me to take care of so many elements that like it would be way too much to me put in this slides. So I want to go over the core elements. First off, the business plan's logo and slogan. I decided to go with Lotus Forge because I wanted to symbolize what blacksmithing was about, which is simplicity. In the end, you're just hitting a hot piece of metal with a hammer and shaping it, and that's all it needs to be. And also, my business plan was focused more on kitchen cutlery, which is why I have the logo at the bottom. Invest in invest in yourself by investing in lifetime kitchen partners. In my business plan, I explained that that Forge products there would be the tools that are like with you for your entire life and hopefully multi-generational. I also did lots of research on how to construct a very strong, say, kitchen knife. And one example would be the Sanmai, which in Japanese stands for three-layer construction. And what if we look at the left, we see that a high carbon steel, the cutting edge, is inserted into what is low carbon steel, which is often the spine. And what's most important here that I gathered from my research was that high carbon steel, it's very good for cutting things if you shape it to be that way. The only problem is that it could break a lot. The thing is, though, if you insert in a jacket of a low carbon steel, which is not good at anything basically that needs to be like a tool, uh, the low carbon steel actually absorbs lots of the shock. And so I did lots of research to choose a specific low carbon steel. And I was set on like say 316 stainless steel. And then I would choose a high carbon steel, 5160 high carbon steel. Just lots of research on just the right ingredients. So one of the biggest takeaways I would like everyone to like take away from this entire project was that anyone could take any craft they do. It may be hard to believe, but lots of people actually engage in what would be called heritage crafts, which is what category blacksmithing belongs to. Wood turning, woodworking, gilding, leather working. There's lots of things that people do, knitting. Those would count as heritage crafts. And as long as you put in the effort into it, I've learned that you could have the potential to make that your business. There's a market for just about anyone's handcrafting hobby, and it exists. All you have to do is organize a plan, and that reality just might become a bit more clear. So I do want to talk about how heritage blacksmithing is part of how it like fits into WSP and how it embodies the whole spirit of it, WSP. Innovation is a very key word to WSP that I've long associated with it because it allows us to mix majors that necessarily wouldn't belong together for a new field. And that's something that's also happening in the world of blacksmithing. There's studies into see to like how to mix blacksmithing with robots to see if we could create the quality of steel that blacksmiths could make in factories. It's still in its infancy, but the fact that Whittier College is permitting us to do this, to like create our own majors this way, I think is significant to contributing towards the development of such fields, as mentioned with robotics and blacksmithing. And I think that's like just the spirit of innovation. You're not gonna get anywhere if we keep people just doing like, oh, you have to do business, you have to do business, you have to do this science, you have to do this science. Mixing things up is how we get ahead. And I would like to thank Whittier College for offering me that opportunity to do so. So what's next steps for me after this? Uh, so I made this when I was hoping that this whole COVID thing would be going down. It still hasn't. So traveling might not be in the books for me, but reading books is still in the books me too. No pun intended. But yeah, essentially I plan, once I have the opportunity, I plan to travel and make use of my minor, which would be uh, uh, West Eastern languages, French and Japanese specifically, to travel to particular countries and hopefully study under blacksmiths in different countries who may have techniques that I could learn and develop on my own. And then also on the right to, getting in more books and studying more because as much as blacksmithing helps it helps to do blacksmithing on in person, there's also a lot that you could learn from just reading books at a scientific level too. And I want to end it with this quote that I found from Amy Wilkinson's book, The Creator's Code, something that I thought was so essential to heritage crafts and business plans and entrepreneurs in general. She finishes off one of her chapters going, "That's how creators work. They seize the wheel, their eyes focus ahead, weaving around the potholes of naysayers and distractions. They have one objective, success. Nothing will get in their way." I think this quote highlights uh, is a highlight of this project because uh, it sounds like blacksmithing should exist, like I mentioned earlier, but then there's obviously the advantages blacksmiths can produce that machinery simply can't. And it also brought me to uh, have develop another mindset that I think I would love to share with everyone. So no matter how many weaknesses you or an idea may have, you can make it work successfully if hold on. If you put all the advantages you can reach for in your corner, quoted by me. I said that. And here's my citations. And once again, I would like to thank Professor Icho for all the invaluable help on the business plan aspect, because without it, I don't think I would be able to present anything today. And I would also like to thank all the people that assisted me throughout this project through online forums and media boards and the like. They were very invaluable help from everyone, in other words. Thank you very much.